something which initially would have normally been disappointing news, which I would have found to be disappointing news. But when I started to look a little bit beyond it, I thought, no, this is a good thing. This is good news. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Adam Hložek. And it's the stories that have come out in the last 2 or 3 days which have confirmed that we had first dibs on Hlozek. Now, well, there's 2 parts of the good news. The first one is there has to be some benefit with having an owner who also has part ownership in another club. The benefit to us on this occasion was that we got offered the best young player at Sparta Prague first. Great. What wasn't so great, and what I didn't particularly appreciate at the time, was that we didn't take him. We didn't take up the offer. I wasn't sure that there was even an offer. For those of you who don't know, Hlozek has signed for Bayern Leverkusen for, it's nearly 20 million quid, whatever, 22 million euros, 23 million euros, something like that, doesn't matter. Now, the interesting thing is, this is somebody that I liked. We've spoken about him on this channel on many occasions. I thought he had a lot of the qualities needed to play in a David Moyes team. But the stories have come out now that we did have first refusal and David Moyes said no. Now, this is not a surprise to me. As regular watchers of the channel know, when a year and a half had gone by and we'd been linked with this kid and it just wasn't happening, I did say on a number of videos, look, the reason we're not getting him is because Moyes won't be interested. If Moyes was interested, we would have got him. Even on loan or whatever the case may be, it was quite clear. Not because we'd been outbid or not because of he didn't want to come to West Ham or anything like that. It would have just been the manager being fussy and saying no. And actually, do you know what? I don't mind. And I'll tell you why I don't mind, because this is an indication of David Moyes not having players thrust upon him. If you could just put aside, and that's what I'm doing, because I rate the player, I think he's quite good, right? But if you just put aside your own personal opinion, it's surely a good thing that the manager is able to say, no, I'm not having him. I don't want him. He's not my pick. I'm not going to take him on. And it is good that the club are now not forcing these deals through. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, at a time when we're dealing with quite a lot of bad press, I think this is good news wrapped up in a bad news story, if that makes sense. The other thing when I look at this particular instance is it also gives a little indication on other players. Now, apparently, Moyes' reasoning for not wanting to bring Hlozek in is that he doesn't think he's got the physicality for the Premier League. Now, if you just look at this on the surface, this seems like a strange claim. The lad is 6'1". He seems to be relatively powerful. He's quick enough. He's not rapid, but we've got a slow team. He'd be quicker than most of the players in our team. You think, okay, I don't sort of get that. He looks reasonably strong. Then when you go back and look at the footage, he does get put off the ball quite a lot. That being said, he's young. He's still a teenager. He has time to fill out. But maybe David Moyes doesn't want somebody who's going to have time to fill out. Maybe David Moyes wants somebody for the now. And perhaps, just perhaps, he's not willing to spend £20 million of his transfer budget, which we don't know what it is, but it's clearly not limitless, is it? If 80 million, 100 million, 120 million, whatever it is, he's possibly not willing to do that. So that is good news. I also look at the physicality thing as well, and I believe this is a believable story. This is why, if you remember, whenever we were linked with, remember Armstrong, who went and signed for Southampton, and I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people saying this is the next superstar from the Championship. He was scoring lots of goals, and I looked at him. I took one look at him. I said, this wouldn't play under David Moyes. He had that look. He had that diminutive, quick, central type striker look about him, which David Moyes just doesn't like. And for that reason, when I saw the rumours that were linking us with Jonathan David, who looks to be a really, really good player, I didn't look and see anything in him which would suggest that's a David Moyes type player. And then when you actually look at some of the other players, you look at Yosif En-Nesyri and you look at Darwin Núñez, these are 2 players that we know David Moyes is interested in these players. You start to get a bit of a handle on what David Moyes wants. And fair play to him for actually trying to push through and actually reject anything that he doesn't want. But on the flip side, whilst we've established the type of player that David Moyes likes, I also don't understand why he's not a little bit more effusive about Mandalorian Broja, because I think he does have those attributes that would suit Moyes really well. So it's sometimes when you look at the team, it's not about who you want. I'd like us to play a 4-4-2, one big and one little. And do you know what? We don't. But once you assess, once you realise what David Moyes wants, you can start to look at the team. So, but I just think from the aspect of David Moyes saying, no, I'm the boss, I'm not accepting any of this stuff. Now, this runs alongside another story, which is David Moyes rejecting a lot of players at the moment. Now, I heard it a couple of days ago. Somebody said he's not dealing with certain agents. He just won't do it. Again, I find this to be another positive. Because what he's saying is, no, we're going to do it my way. I'm not going to take players recommended by X, Y and Z agent just because that's the chosen way to do it, just because that is the path that has previously been trodden by the club. No, I reject all of that. Now, I think this is painful. I think it's painful for everybody. I think it's painful, but it's like I can't think of the phrase now. Yesterday I couldn't even work out. I couldn't remember what a bobsleigh was. Thank you for everybody that was telling me. You know, they think that like the ripping off of the plaster. Well, you know the phrase. I'm terrible. I can't even. My brain won't even engage at the moment. But I think it's painful. I think sometimes you've got to rip the plaster off. And I think this is one of those occasions, actually. I think it's quite painful for us because it's hard to watch this sort of slow, methodical, laboured recruitment process. I think it's probably quite painful for Moyes because not only has he got to try and recruit players, buy players, get players scouted, but he's also got to fight an internal battle at the club to wrestle away power but I guess from David Sullivan, who traditionally was the guy that would do this sort of thing. And I guess it has to be painful for David Sullivan, who's basically, it's like he's having his favourite toy taken away. No, oh, go on, you have it. No, you know, it's a bit like that, I think, for David Sullivan. So I do think it's a painful process, but I do hope, and I say hope, I do hope that it's sort of worth it in the end. And I do think that it's probably the right thing to do. Because we complained so many times. Actually, you know, you can list, don't need me to list the players again, we've done it so many times, but players, and we look and we say, is this a managerial pick? Did the manager pick this player? And then we look sometimes and we look at a lot of the players that come in and they've all come through the same agents. So you think, well, hold on a second, you know, people are just on the, you know, it's a very, very convenient way, and it's just a regular avenue for players to come through, and I guess, obviously you probably noticed I stopped myself from saying what I was going to say there, but you know, it is an easy transaction there, and I think there's probably a more painful way to do it, but actually you shouldn't be choosing players just because they come through a certain agent. What you want to do is pick the best players for the job, regardless of what their representation is, or who their representation, I should say. And this is really important. So the Hlozek one, it's a bit of a shame, but you know what? If David Moyes doesn't want him, there's no point. And there's no point to any of us. Even if I like him, it doesn't matter. Because you know what would happen? Even if this situation was forced upon him, no, you must have Adam Hložek. You know what would happen to him? It'd be on the bench. And he'd be sat on the bench alongside Vlasic and alongside Ben Rama. And we'd be in games, and it'd be the 75th minute. And Antonio would be looking pretty knackered. And we'd be saying, hello, Moisey, a substitution, please. He'd be looking at his bench thinking, no, you'd be there thinking, I even think a knackered Antonio is more likely to get a goal than the kid on the bench who has been forced upon me, who I didn't want anyway. And this is just so important. I keep saying it, and I'll say it relentlessly because it happens. It happens so often where he looks at the bench he doesn't fancy. He doesn't like the composition of it. He doesn't like the players that are on the bench. I don't know why I'm pointing over there. I always point. It's like the bench is over there. I don't know why maybe the bench is over that side, but whatever. I don't know why I always point the bench is over there. So if they said I was substituted, I'd look over there and say, me. Have a sulk. Go off. Anyway, I think it's really important that the players that are on the bench are his picks and people that he fancies and people that he wants. And I hope we can start to overcome this. And I really think, in fact, I'll talk about that in another video about Agard coming in. But that's the first sign, that's the first step. It looks like it's happening. I've got other things I want to say on that, and already we've done nearly 10 minutes on this video anyway, so I think we'll leave it there. But I do believe this is good news. This is good news. Draw a line under it. Hlozek goes off. Look, it may well be that Hlozek goes off to Bayer Leverkusen and rips it up and plays really, really well. Will at that point Moyes look a bit silly? He might do. But then again, if you remember, Sebastian Haller went to Ajax and started ripping it up there. Did Moyes look silly? I'm not sure Moyes did look silly. I think, actually, you could be critical of Moyes, thinking, well, hold on, this is clearly a quality player. Why couldn't you get a tune out of him? Well, I'll tell you why Moyes couldn't get a tune out of him, because Moyes isn't flexible in the way his system is. Yes, it can be 3 at the back, it can be 4 at the back, but inherently the way he wants to play, which is counter-attacking with a very mobile front striker. It doesn't matter whether he's playing 3-5, 3-5-2 or whatever, 4-4-2, whatever the case may be, 4-2. Anyway, so sounded like giving out my phone number then, didn't it? It's not. Don't try and ring it. You won't get through to me. It doesn't really matter because his type of player is set in stone. So even though Sebastian Haller went to Ajax and worked out well, doesn't mean he would have come back to West Ham and David Moyes would have made it work. He wouldn't. He wouldn't, because Sebastian Haller at Ajax is a very different player to Sebastian Haller under David Moyes at West Ham. So even if Hlozek does do well, that doesn't mean he would have done well under us. I suspect he might have done. I suspect he's probably a little bit more robust than David Moyes gives him credit for. I think I think there are some attritional aspects to his game. He is also young. I've got to be perfectly honest with you. The first time I saw Nunes play, and I have only seen him play once, the first Benfica-Liverpool game, he was falling about all over. He was diving and falling about. Honestly, Virgil van Dijk looks at him and he fell over. So I wasn't entirely sure. Apparently, he played much better in the second game. It looks like he's going to go and sign for Manchester United anyway. And by the way, that's what getting that 6th spot probably does for you. If we'd have finished 6th, he probably wouldn't have signed for Man United. I'm not saying he would have signed for us, but there you go. It was a pretty bad result against Brighton, all things considered. Anyway, so I'm going off on a tangent. I'm going negative again. That being said, regardless of how well Adam Hložek does, I do think that this is good news, because if David Moyes doesn't want him, then it's right that we didn't bring him in.